Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and master certified life coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, today's episode is all about not letting hormones ruin your midlife. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle with over 1 million downloads and counting. I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, your master certified coach and midlife clarity expert, and I am so happy to be here with you again. So today we're talking about everyone's favorite topic, hormones. The ups, the downs, the confusion, the changes, and how it's super common to feel pretty alone with all this stuff that goes on in your body. Can you relate to this? I think I got off pretty easy actually when I think back. I rarely had mood swings back in the days when I had my period. I got pretty uncomfortable and crampy, but I couldn't really identify or relate to the mood swings that my friends were talking about. Until perimenopause, that is. I was totally caught off guard. It was the most out-of-body experience I've ever had as I was watching myself experience all of this negative emotion. I didn't know much about perimenopause or menopause. The emotional part, of course, is just a sliver of everything that's going on. It's just so much. There didn't seem to be much information, though, about it at the time, which was about 12 or 13 years ago for me. Now it's getting better, but as you'll soon hear, it's still not a breeze to find information and to sort things out for yourself. I know you're going to be able to totally relate to this episode. But just quick, I want to share something exciting and new with you. I know that in midlife, it's easy to get stuck and confused about your priorities and what the heck you really want to do with your valuable time on this planet. No small thing. And just like menopause, you're not really alone, even though it feels like it. But in this case, when it comes to figuring it all out and getting clear about what you want, what your passion is, what you want to make sure that you don't have regrets about, you're not alone. So here's something to help you. It's called the Get Unstuck Midlife Clarity Fast and Easy Masterclass. Here's the scoop. Life is too short to waste time feeling stuck in midlife. If you don't do something about your stuck state of affairs, nobody will. And now you can do this. You can take this fun online midlife masterclass and get clear about your next chapter priorities without spin, confusion, and overwhelm in less than an hour. So my amazing woman in the middle, picture this. You snap your fingers. I don't know if you can hear that. And you're crystal clear about what your priorities are so that you can take the next steps. You're finally feeling free because you know how to move forward and you see that you have plenty of time to have more fun and meaning in your life. You can grab this masterclass and get unstuck about your priorities fast and easy on your own time in the comfort of your own home and without being live on screen. You can get clear about your next chapter priorities in less than an hour and celebrate the most clarity you've had about what you really want in life in decades. If you're listening in real time, the unbelievably affordable introductory pricing is on now. If you're tired of feeling stuck and bored with craving more happiness and excitement in your life because you don't know what you want, run, don't walk. You've got nothing to lose and clarity to gain, my friend. Head over to www.midliferoadmap.com and download Get Unstuck Midlife Clarity Fast and Easy and get started. Okay, now here we go. Today's episode is all about not letting hormones ruin your midlife. Like so many of us, Kathy discovered her true passion as a result of her own personal experience, and in this case, that had to do with her hormones. My guest today is Kathy Fritz. Kathy is a board-certified master hormone coach who coaches women in perimenopause and menopause to get rid of the weight gain, hot flashes, and sleep and hormonal issues so that they can feel like themselves again, regain their energy, and lead a longer, healthier life. Her clients lose weight, rediscover their energy, feel sexy, and stop thinking that they're losing their minds. Kathy's background in education is part of her story and journey as well, and it definitely gives her the expertise to individualize material so her clients can go from where they are to where they want to be. I have a strong feeling you're going to love this episode. One quick note, the information shared in this podcast is intended for your convenience, entertainment, and education, and isn't geared to your personal situation. It's not a replacement for care or advice from your own medical professional. So as always, you may have some things you want to follow up on, so please seek a suitable professional to advise you on your personal situation. Let's go. Hi, Kathy. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Women in the Middle podcast.
It's so good to be here, Susie, and hello to your lovely listeners.
I love it when the internet brings amazing people together, and here you are. Where in the world are you?
I am outside of Boston in Needham, Massachusetts.
Oh, I have been there. I'm a New England girl, ultimately. I was born in New Haven. I have family in Connecticut and Rhode Island. So fun.
Oh, great. Yeah, well, then you know that right now we are in a beautiful 80-degree couple of days, and we're going back to the 50s in a few days.
I did hear that the weather was going to turn. It's also nice here, but I am definitely ready to do some gardening. That's for sure. But I know I can't rush it.
You know those beautiful plants behind you. I can tell you're a gardener.
I do love plants. Okay, so thanks so much for being here. One of the things I really like about your story is that you started teaching. You've always been teaching in some part of your life for a very long time, and then it wasn't great anymore. So tell me about your life as a teacher in education, what was going on for you, and what caused you to make a change.
Sure. So I knew I wanted to be a high school English teacher when I was still a high school student.
Wow.
This was just what I was going to do with my life. And I had like a brief moment in college where I was like, well, maybe I'll be a clinical psychologist. And then I decided, no, I definitely want to be a teacher. And it really was this kind of idyllic experience for a long time for me. So I, got my master's in an extra year at the same place I did my undergrad. It was so easy. The place that I was a student teacher at hired me. First I taught all freshmen. So, because I was young, I was only 23 at that point. So I had the youngest teenagers and, really was able to leverage my nurturing because, they're just coming in. They're still really eighth graders when they arrive. So I was able to do that for a number of years, really become an expert and team leader for the freshman team. So that was great for growth and development. Then I started teaching seniors as well, and that was super fun. So I had kids on the way in, I had kids on the way out, loved it. And then I got pregnant. And up until that point, there had been some part-time teachers. And I was like, great, I'll have my baby and I'll switch to part-time for a few years. And then I'll come back full-time and carry on with my career. And so it didn't quite work out that way. I was able to take a year off with my daughter. I use the phrase was able to because it is a blessing to be able to make that choice, certainly a financial as well as lifestyle blessing. But what happened, the bigger story was they actually gave me part-time. I thought I was going back part-time and then they took it away and they said, actually, we need you full-time.
Uh-oh.
And I said, okay, well, that's not what we agreed on. And I'm not really ready to do that. So I'll just take the maternity leave. So, in public schools in Massachusetts, this is common where you can take the year, you don't get paid, but you have a job when you return. So I was like, all right, I got a year to figure this out. And staying home was amazing, but it was also the hardest year of my life. We can get into that later if we want to. So then I did actually get that part-time job. And that year I taught sophomores and I was the best teacher I'd ever been because I got to be in school and have, my class that I taught, but I also got to be home and continue to be with my daughter. So that was perfect. And now during that year, I also, got pregnant again. So I was like, all right, here we go. I can do this again. And again, chose that year off, with the two kids and then was like, okay, I'm ready to come back to my part-time job. This will be great. And then they really said, no, you got to come back full time. We want you here all the time. In fact, somebody shared with me. Now this is secondhand information, so I can't say if this is truly what she said, but my principal, a woman, was told as saying, young mothers need to make a choice. They can stay home with their kids or they can be here at work. This was a woman saying this about other women. And it just was like, whoa, wait a second. This is not the environment I want to be in. And so I did make the decision to leave that school and it was really hard. I was very upset. I was sad. I thought I would retire from this school. My personality is one that I'm incredibly loyal and I make the best of situations. And even though no school is perfect, I was very, very happy at this school. So it was a total shock to me to resign. I still remember the feeling of sending in my resignation letter and feeling like they're going to call me tomorrow and be like, okay, just kidding. We didn't know that you were serious. Okay. We want you to come back.
Aww.
That didn't happen. Turns out that high school could function just fine without me. So that was a humbling experience for sure. Now I still felt like teaching was my vocation and I still felt drawn to it. And I was very confused as to what the heck I was going to do next. And I stumbled upon virtual teaching at a virtual high school. Now this was before COVID, before it was trendy. I like to say I started the trend. And I took the job, and what was great is it was part-time and you could do it from home.
Right.
And so I took the job thinking I'd be there a year, maybe two. But again, I just tend to be someone who gets so invested in what she does. I was there for 7 years, which really surprised me. And it was a great fit for that time with really young kids and needing a lot of flexibility. My husband's job is one where like, he is not going to be the one that can leave and pick up the kids if somebody's sick or it's a half day. And so he can take a half day. That's my job. And so it really worked very well. And, I was grateful to that school for the opportunity. But then I had the feeling of being done. You know that feeling when you're just
actually. I had that feeling for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I knew it when we had one in-person event. It was a conference for, I think it was 2 days, and it happened in the summer, and I loved it until I didn't. And I was at that event and I was not invested. And I said, okay, this is very clear information for me because I don't want to be an employee that's not all in. And
why weren't you invested? What did you notice?
So it wasn't enriching me in the way it had. I was, again, very fortunate. They gave me a lot of different roles and they all helped me to grow. And the only roles I was interested in required you to be in the office, and their office was 90 minutes from my house. And so I am not somebody who's going to do well 3 hours in a car every day or even like 3 days a week. That's just not me. So I knew that just wasn't an option. So really I saw that there was no more opportunity for growth at that particular school. So that's kind of why I wrapped up there is realizing like I could just keep doing what I'm doing, but it's not going to make me happy. And if I'm unhappy, I'm going to underproduce for them. And again, I just am not somebody that feels good about underproducing. So I took the leap again and, told my husband like, all right, I've got this crazy idea. I had been getting into health and wellness over the course of really my first pregnancy. So in my first pregnancy, I was healthy, but my baby was pretty big. And I had failed the 1 hour glucose tolerance test. I passed the long one. So I don't know if you're familiar with that test. Did you have to do that?
I think I did, but this is very vague now for me because my kids are a little older.
2 years ago. Well, you probably passed it and that's why, you don't even think about it. But it was strange to have my body quote unquote fail a test. Interesting language, right? Especially coming from education where like fail, really? Okay. That's interesting. So on my second pregnancy, I actually failed the 4 hour and was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. Now, my only risk factor was that I was over 25. I was 29 at the time. And this was my second baby. So I was like finishing up having kids before I was 30. And that was my one risk factor. And I just couldn't figure out like, how did this happen? How did my body fail me? So that's kind of like the thing that began my whole health and wellness journey. Fast forward to finishing up at the online school, and I had been reading a lot and having my own experiences with my body not being really where I wanted it to be.
That's so interesting. So I have a question. I don't know if you thought about this, but if that job situation wasn't so obviously not a good fit with that 3 hours in the car, do you think you would have been dissatisfied enough to make a change?
I think so, because it wasn't just the 3-hour commute. There were, I think, other factors at play that if I had taken a job, like, let's just pretend that it wasn't that 3-hour daily commute. I don't think I would have been satisfied with life as it was clearly headed in. The direction.
I'm picking up on that because, I talk to a lot of women who were stuck with this, stuckness, this feeling of stuckness. It's defined a little bit differently from different people, but in the end, I think it really has something to do with not growing. So if you're somebody who likes to grow, not necessarily to always make big changes like new jobs and stuff, but to have growth. And certainly that's what I noticed with my stuckness. I think I'm making up a new word with stuckness, but
no, I like it.
I use it all.
Trademark.
I use it all the time. But I think, I really realized at the beginning it was much more exciting. I was younger and there was more to learn, but it was also more exciting, more people to meet, being, growing in your profession rather than being at the top of not the top of the profession, but where you're learning fewer things because you have a lot of things dialed in and you're much more comfortable operating as an expert at that level, whatever it is, right? So just that feeling of stagnation, I think that's what you're getting at. Like, you just weren't growing. You were feeling, like you said, that's the path it's taking. It doesn't really feel like me. And there's a terrible commute. No good.
Right. I think you've hit the nail on the head there.
Okay. So now you're motivated by being curious about your body letting you down when your body has been pretty reliable for a very long time.
Absolutely. I'm somebody who's always, always thought she ate well. That's a kind of a loaded term.
Yeah.
Who always had moved her body. I was a collegiate athlete. I played lacrosse through college. I'm now a tennis and paddle player. I was a runner for a very brief amount of time, and then I realized that I hated it.
So it didn't feel like you were going to be having something wrong that you could have prevented, type of thing.
Right. I thought I'm checking all the boxes. I'm doing all the things. Why are things out of whack? So
I'm being such a good girl. What's going on here?
I'm following the rules. I'm absolutely following the rules. Like, food plate this, food pyramid that, X number of minutes of cardio a week. What's going on here? Turns out there's not really a recipe for health. As much as I think some of the, media tries to present it as such, there's not. And so I had to do my own research and my own discovery, because when I went to the doctor, she said, oh yeah, it's probably like a hormone issue. So how about the pill? Now, I don't know if you know this, but the pill actually shuts down communication between your brain and your ovaries. So, and if that's what you want to do, then yeah, go for the pill. But for most women, we actually want there to be better communication. There is already a lack of communication, and that's why we're having our problems. So I was really struggling with sleep, and I was having a lot of moodiness. My PMS was a lot worse. My acne was bad. My skin was dry. My hair was falling out. And when you have young kids, you're like, oh, this is probably just like related to that. But at this point, my kids weren't babies anymore. They were school age. And I was like, wait a second. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And then I go to the doctor and she wants me to just go on the pill. So I was really dissatisfied with that answer. And because I'm a teacher, I'm also a huge nerd. And I'm just so happy to gather information and learn more. And I learned two things. One is how common hormonal imbalances are for women. And two, how there's just this void. There's a void about women's bodies after puberty. Unless you're like going through fertility challenges, there's a fair amount of information there. But if it's not like trying to have a baby fertility related, the information is just not available.
Yeah.
And so that's what led to my next career.
Wow. And so what route did you take?
So I did let me see how this information lands with my friends route.
So it's like, am I doing something really weird or does this sound like a good idea? That kind of thing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was like, I think I want to go in this direction, but I better check and make sure there's actually a clientele. So I, did a launch, like a little class to launch it. And I did it in person. And then I think I recorded it, really poorly. And then I think I sent it out to a small group of people and I offered 6 weeks of coaching for $100.
Well, that is a good deal.
Right. Isn't that a good deal? I was so generous. So, cause I just wanted to see what it felt like. And I didn't want to, I didn't want to do it for free because I wanted the women to be all in, but I also didn't, have any idea about how to price my services. So, I did that I think I did it for 7 or 8 women. And I was like, okay, yes, I like this. This is definitely, using my skill set in a different way. I really like working with women in this age group. Okay, this feels good. And so then I got certified and then I got master certified and then I got board certified because again, the super nerd had to get all the certifications.
Well, and I wonder if there was anything else going on there other than just being nerdy, but
imposter syndrome.
I was just going to say, it sounds like the credentials are very important to you.
You definitely touched on that there, Susie. So I felt like in order to serve my clients and feel like I was the top, I don't know if it's the top choice or like
the credibility, really credible. Yeah.
I think to feel like I had done everything I could to be credible.
Right.
I needed to go that route. Now I was working with clients while I went that route. I didn't wait until the end. And I definitely gained in my self-esteem and confidence in my coaching role as I continued with those certifications. And I do believe that the board certified is important, because I would like to eventually work in a medical practice. Right now, I'm happy to do my solopreneur stuff, but I'd love to join a medical practice someday, and I'm going to need that certification. So this was a little bit with the future in mind.
Okay. I love that planning. So if you really do want to work in a medical office, then you did need to do some investigation around credentials and make sure everything was kosher, basically.
Right. And I figured do it now while I'm kind of like in student mode. I had been doing the other accreditations and I was like, just get it done.
So if you could just tell me, what did it feel like to recognize that you were on the right path, that it felt good, compared to that, that feeling of it being a little boring or just not being exciting anymore? What was that like for you? What did you notice about the way you were responding to all these new inputs?
Well, I would say first I was really surprised, because I didn't realize how much I was going to grow as a business owner.
Sorry, Nico just walked in.
I see him. He's amazing. Oh my gosh, you're right. He's huge.
I told you I wasn't exaggerating. So
you could ride him.
Look at that tail. There he goes.
I know. Oh my gosh. He's like, I just had to check in, Mom. Okay. Bye-bye.
So sorry, go ahead. So this feeling between just really noticing how you felt getting all of this new information.
So I was really surprised at first because I had no idea that I was going to grow so much personally and professionally
that happened to me too. So interesting.
Right? Like you kind of think like, I have a few things to learn. Oh my gosh, I'm a different person than I used to be. And in only a few short years, I started this business at the end of 2019. It hasn't been that long, but gosh, that girl that I was then and the girl I am now, like they're very different people.
So as you're talking about that, what's the main reason they're different? What is the area of difference?
I think in the positives that I have a lot more belief in myself, which is great. It's almost like in my professional world, I was very fortunate. I mean, things kind of were handed to me for a while there. when you're an entrepreneur, you have to go out and get everything. Things are not handed to you. You need to be productive and proactive. And so there's a better belief in myself in my professional life that when I pursue something, it is something that I can grasp. So that was pretty exciting.
Okay. That was the positive. So what else did you notice?
So I think there was almost this like naivety in myself from a few years ago that I miss some days. Like, oh, she had it so good. She had it so easy. You got your students assigned to you. You did your thing with them. You got paid. Like there was just like an ease there that just, it doesn't exist for me at this point in my entrepreneurial journey. Who knows, where I'll be in another couple of years. So there's a part of me that misses the ease and the naivety of not being an entrepreneur. But now that I've run my own business, I don't think I could ever go back to working for a school. Working for a medical practice, that would be different and fun and new and exciting, and would help me grow in new and different ways. But I do think there was an ease there that, every now and then it's like, oh, remember when you just got a paycheck every 2 weeks? That was awesome.
Remember when you went on vacation and the paycheck kept coming in?
Oh my gosh. When I didn't have to work to get paid, I just had a salary. Yeah.
Now, and certainly there are ways to grow your business to make sure that there's recurring income, but it is a big learning curve. And just, I don't know about you, but I didn't have a lot of business training until I became an entrepreneur. You had zero, right? Yeah,
zero business training. Yeah.
Yeah.
Turns out that's actually its own college major.
And that's the funny thing about, it sounds like your experience was similar to mine. When I decided to become a coach, I was just like, yeah, I'm going to be a great coach. I'm good at learning. I've been in psychology and focused on human behavior and behavior change my whole life. I've always been interested in it. This is a great fit. And it is, and it was, and I felt at home immediately. And then as I'm getting better at coaching and building my skills, then I'm like, oh, you mean finding people requires a whole new area of expertise. Like you can't just say you want to coach somebody and have them show up. You need to have a plan. You need to understand marketing. You need to think about what you want and who your people are and where they're looking for you. And all that stuff is a whole different ballgame. Has nothing to do with getting better as a coach.
Absolutely. And what you said, Susie, really resonates with me. I was an English teacher. I know how to write. I am terrible at marketing because it's a whole different way of communicating. It's not analytical writing. I can do that with my eyes closed. Marketing is, I'm just owning. I'm terrible at it. And it's a skill set that I'm really working hard to build.
One step at a time. But yeah,
absolutely.
Just knowing that it's another skill, because I find we are naive when we start.
Mm-hmm.
Well, many of us are. Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you was it difficult for you, somebody who cares about credentials and ticking boxes and doing the right thing? Was it challenging for you to decide where you were going to study to be a coach?
Well, let's just say I did a lot of research.
I bet you did. I was overwhelmed by the research. And the main question, this was before COVID, but the main question for me was, does it have to be in person or can it be some kind of an online thing? Because when I started, Zoom wasn't even a thing. I was on teleconference. So I don't know, like even thinking about that is how do you get the education you want? Does it need to be where I live or can it be someplace else? It was so overwhelming to me.
Yeah, there are a lot of coaching programs out there. And then in my specific coaching, health coaching, there's still a ton of options. So to your point, it was like, okay, well, which one is going to lead me where eventually I want to go? And then there's actually a whole bunch of those. I mean, it wasn't like I could narrow it down to one. So I did, info calls with, I got it down to 3 schools with the 3 different schools that I was most interested in. And they were 100% online at that point. So I didn't have the same challenge you did. although in my early research, I did look at some in person and virtual, like hybrid. And so I was right there with you. And so it was during those 3 different calls that it was clear that one of the schools was absolutely what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then you launched, everything's moving along swimmingly. I know in your application to be on the podcast, you talked around, being challenged by mindset and seeing your work as extra. Tell me a little bit more about that, because like, I know if you're experiencing it, you're not the only one.
Yeah, this is a real place of vulnerability for me because, I have this money story. Because and I think some of it comes from being a teacher. So there is definitely this, story that teachers don't make good money.
Mm.
And when my husband and I actually met the first day of college, so we've been together a long time. We've had a lot of time to talk about things. And one of the things that we had talked about early on was, he would be the breadwinner and I would be the caretaker when it came to that time. So for a while, we were actually, my teaching salary and his salary, were actually very close. I actually made more than him for a couple of years while he was starting his career. And so going from that to being home those 2 years and having this part-time salary and then using this, having this part-time virtual teacher salary, which is less than a brick and mortar salary. I created this money story about like, all I can add is like a little extra money that we can use when we go on vacation. And, my work, will always be incredible work that is not paid well.
Wow, that's a doozy.
Yeah. And truly like unpacking that and rewriting that is ongoing, because when you have these core beliefs about money and the value of what you provide, it blocks you.
Totally. It's
progress.
It's a classic, what we call in coaching, a limiting belief. And I remember, I'm so glad you're talking about this. So thank you for that. But money issues are a really big deal, and they all come out when you're putting yourself on the line and out there in such a visible way. You're putting your stake in the sand. I'm going to make some money. I'm on my own. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm here to help. And this, like, it's squirm worthy for many people anyway. But with this additional narrative that you'd been practicing for a very long time, it's no wonder that it created some problems. But I remember where I was when I discovered a limiting belief I had around money. And all my best thoughts seemed to come from the shower. In my last job a long time ago, I developed children's books, a couple of children's books, and about addiction and mental health. And I would always come up with the names for the book in the shower. So anyway, I was in the shower and I was thinking, what's going on? It's taking me longer than I thought it would to make decent money. And I'm like, I'm doing all the things. Well, I must be doing it wrong. And then, so that's not a helpful thought. And then it came to me. I had a thought that looked completely fine on paper. And it was a big problem. And the thought was, I just have to replace my income. Now, I just have to replace my income doesn't even seem like a problematic thought. Like in my mind, it was noble. Yes, husband. Yes, family. I just need to replace my income, and I will replace my income. It never occurred to me that it was a limiting belief. Why not blow past my income? And that year I tripled my income.
Wow.
Right? Once I identified the thought, but I was standing there naked, just going, what is going on with me? So I haven't tripled my income every year, that's for sure. But it was a major block that year that just really was such a surprise, because it was a stinky thought that didn't look stinky on the outside.
That was a sneaky limiting belief.
Oh, it was so sneaky because it felt so noble. It felt so noble.
And well-intentioned, right?
Yes. And when I was miserable for 5 years, feeling so stuck, I just even was thinking about it then, like even getting another job before I got laid off, and realized I had no more excuses left not to be an entrepreneur. But when I was considering getting another job or going back to school, I was really thinking, well, I just have to replace my income. Like everywhere I was thinking, that's how it was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So it never occurred to me till I was naked, standing there, toweling off at this point, just so shocked that this was what it was. So
That's amazing, Susie. And I'll bet that some listener is like, oh my gosh, that's what I think. And has just had this epiphany that she's holding herself back by thinking that.
yeah, and I've had that conversation with other teachers too, because it's definitely, you're not the only teacher who thought that way. And, what I've seen in my career is that teachers have some of the most transferable skills of any profession. So transferable. And one of the main areas that I focus on in this podcast is transferable skills and how possible it is to apply your skills and expertise in other areas that are, a better fit for you now at this age and stage. Mm-hmm. To believe in yourself and to believe in the value of a soft skill sometimes or a transferable skill is something that we as women aren't very good at.
Well, and I think part of that has to do with society and it not valuing those soft skills in a really out there way. And if we look at, pay as an example, we value those bankers that are dealing in hard skills of like money or those finance people or, whatever it is. And the soft skills of like nurturing children and helping them develop self-esteem while they also grow academically is really undervalued by our society. So I think it's hard to break out of those limiting beliefs.
It can be. That's why everybody needs a coach, right?
Oh, 100%. Right? Coaches have to have coaches. I'm a big believer.
Absolutely. And certainly I've had coaching too. And, this is absolutely something that comes up in my community. A lot of people our age are weird about money anyway, like let alone launching yourself and putting yourself out there where you're actually making offers and having a transaction with people. Very interesting stuff. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about is you, are the primary caregiver for 2 children and very involved in your 70-year-old mother's life. So tell me a little bit about what's going on with that, because being in the whole sandwich generation thing is very much a part of your reality.
Absolutely. And, I've always been very involved in my mother's life. But my father passed just over a year ago. And so it's really shifted the way that looks. When I was saying goodbye to my father, I said to him, I'll take care of mom. And those words were really powerful. For me, I've never asked her, what she thought of them. And he was at that point non-responsive. But I like to think they gave him peace. And I hope that they give her a sense of security and comfort. She's incredibly independent right now, which is awesome. She is the poster child for why it's important to stay active. Because at 70, she plays on a tennis team, on a paddle tennis team. She goes to weightlifting classes. She walks all the time. And she's very, healthy, to use a word that's overused, but truly she's very healthy. So I'm very fortunate in that her requirements are not really physical, but they are emotional because she lives alone for the first time since she's never lived alone. I'm sorry. She grew up one of 5 children, and then she moved right in with roommates, and then she moved right in with my dad.
Wow. Yeah.
So she's truly never lived alone. And my father and she always had people living with them. So my grandmother lived with them for 19 years.
Wow.
During those 19 years, my husband, one of our kids and I, my husband and both of our kids and I lived with them at different times. Whenever I have a brother who lives in Guam. And so whenever he visits, he comes for a significant amount of time and brings extended family with him. So they're always there. So I could go on, but she's always had people with her. And so now she's very alone. So the care for her right now is much more emotional. And trying to remember like, oh gosh, it's a Friday night and I should check in with mom and see what she's doing for dinner. And so remembering to do that, while I'm still trying to manage the kids' activities or their friends coming over and what are they eating and wrapping up my week and, all the other things that come with being a mom, an entrepreneur, a wife, and a daughter. So that's kind of my experience right now in this sandwich generation piece. It's a very emotional, availability kind of experience.
Right. And again, I really, it stood out in your application because, your kids are a little younger and you're sandwiching big time. And I really wanted to, hear more about what that was like for you. So good.
Thank you.
And what is your take on the way your mother welcomes that support? Is she comfortable with that kind of emotional support, or is it a difficult challenge for her?
I'm really lucky. My mom and I are very close, have always been close. When I was 20, my sister died. She was 17. And that sort of thing either makes or breaks a family.
Yes.
And, in a lot of ways, it just kind of solidified our relationship. So, I always knew I wanted to live nearby. We live in the same town.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes. So I'm very fortunate in that she happily receives my efforts, and reciprocates. She is incredibly helpful when I need somebody last minute to help with the kids. She's, wants to come to their activities to see them perform and see them, in their shining moments. So I'm very fortunate in that way, Susie.
Oh, that's great. Well, I do have one last question for you because we're having a great time. I could talk to you all day.
Clearly, me too.
So if you had just like a couple of really important messages about, the perimenopause and menopause, stuff that you're talking to your clients about, now that you're so steeped in it all, what points do you really want to drive home about what we can do?
So the first point I always like to make is that you are not alone. Whatever symptoms you're having, someone else is having them. I promise. Even though your doctor might be saying, "Oh no, it's fine. It's nothing," or "It's normal." There's nothing you can do. That's not true. Okay. You absolutely can find community and you absolutely can find help. I often tell my clients, you're going to take baby steps. You're not going to fix this all at once because it didn't happen all at once. Someone will say, "Oh, it feels like a light switch flipped and all of a sudden I, have a muffin top and I can't get rid of it." And maybe that it feels like the case, kind of physically, but on a cellular level, it's been happening gradually over time. And so have patience as you make some changes that is going to have a gradual impact. So I would say you're not alone. You can do something about it. You can do natural things. You don't have to go to bioidentical hormones. You can do food movement and lifestyle changes that will have an impact. There's help where you need it. There's help where you want it.
That's interesting. Okay, so where is the best place to get the help other than you? Of course, you're the best place to get the help. So I want to ask you for your contact information, but where are reliable sources to get information?
So, if you want to see a doctor, there are menopause certified doctors. They have to do extra hours to get that certification. So, I'm not anti-doctor at all. I'm in awe of medical professionals. They're amazing. Their training is just very specific. It's more of you have a symptom, here's the medication to help that symptom. I'm more interested in, you have a symptom, what's causing it? What's the root cause and how can we address it through food, movement, and lifestyle? But there are medical professionals who are menopause certified. So that's a good place. There are tons of books. You just have to, look them up. They're not going to be on, your library's front table. They're not going to be on the Amazon top 10. But there are books out there that are very helpful books. There are courses that you can take. There are Facebook communities, free Facebook communities where you can find support. And I'm in a lot of those communities offering support.
Amazing. So Kathy, tell us those are great. And I'm glad sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, go ahead.
I'm glad that you mentioned extra certification in the medical profession. I did not know that. That's really great to know. Now, tell us where we can get a hold of you because we don't want to just bump into you by accident in a Facebook group.
Thank you, Susie. You can find me on my website, kathyfritzcoaching.com. I'm also on Instagram at Kathy Fritz Coaching. So that's Kathy with a K, Fritz, like my toilet's on the Fritz, coaching.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kathy. You offered amazing information for us today, and all of your links will be in the show notes.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, that's it for this episode. Nice to know that more professionals are working with women now on perimenopause and menopause-related health, wellness, and what I like to call shenanigans. That's how it feels. Now, as Kathy said, you are not alone, you do not have to suffer, and you are worthy of figuring this stuff out for yourself. Now, as you know, this podcast is all about how to love your life again after 50. It's really all about coaching you to be more intentional and to incorporate mindfulness into your life as a regular practice. This is how you put yourself on your agenda. My focus as your midlife coach is to help you get unstuck, clear, and focused on your current values and priorities so you don't have regrets. I can help you create the confidence, courage, and meaning that you're looking for. If you're ready to take a baby step, you're invited to book your free, no-obligation momentum call at www.womeninthemiddleacademy.com, and we'll chat. One more thing, you're also invited to purchase my new masterclass, Get Unstuck, Midlife Clarity Fast and Easy, where you can get clear about your next chapter priorities without spin, confusion, and overwhelm in less than an hour. Head over to www.midliferoadmap.com. And finally, for show notes and links, head over to www.susierosenstein.com and click the podcast tab and look for episode 373. You'll also see links there for the new show, Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs. Thanks so much for listening. It's time for you to put yourself first, one thought at a time. I'm Susie Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you next week.